Hey guys, welcome to Contest Prep University. I'm Joe Klemczewski with Adam Atkinson, and we are long into our meta series on Peak Week for different divisions. So moving along through the rest of the female categories, Adam and I decided to combine women's physique with bodybuilding because obviously there has been kind of a waning interest in women's bodybuilding for a couple different reasons. But I think it probably has always been a little bit fringy. I mean, just culturally in general, Adam. So when these divisions started emerging that were more inclusive of less muscle, less extreme muscularity, obviously more women were just interested there. So I think there's always going to be a space for women's bodybuilding. But tell me the difference in your mind and just in the actual physical judging criteria between women's physique and women's bodybuilding.
Well, the biggest thing you're going to see is a difference in muscle mass. So women's bodybuilding is going to be larger, and that's really one of the only differences. Now, however, one thing you have to consider is a women's physique competitor, 4% body fat at let's say 150 pounds, but now let's take 4% body fat at 200 pounds. Just due to muscle size, you're going to see, I guess, a more extreme in conditioning, even though body fat levels are the same. And that's kind of why we wanted to combine this podcast, because that's really what you're looking at. It's just more extreme based on the size. So are these girls necessarily leaner than the women's physique competitors? No, they usually have the same very low body fat percentage, but due to the extreme musculature, that is what is making the extreme difference between bodybuilding and women's physique.
And this first episode is, of course, on the criteria. And so I'm glad you started with that. I think my first introduction was a few years ago going to the Masters Nationals. And one of the things I've always given the NPC and the IFBB credit for is they really do stick to their criteria well. And so I was watching a class of women's physique, and there was a woman on stage who was just a monster, just twice as big. And I mean, let's address the elephant in the room when you're talking about NPC women's bodybuilding. Especially at that level, these women are going to be taking, a lot of different types of PEDs, and they're going for the most extreme look they can, just as their counterpart males would be. So in that particular division, the judges instantly took this woman who, was arguably the most symmetrical as well because of her extreme muscularity and size, and just put her at the end. Like you're not even in this division, where you're in last place automatically, even though you have, again, arguably the best physique, because you just don't belong in this division. So they created women's physique for women who are just not into getting quite that large, that much muscle, taking it to the extreme anatomical potential. But where do you really draw that line? Obviously, it's not figure or bikini or something else. So it's still, in your mind, a bodybuilding type category, just not quite as extreme.
Exactly. I'll also say there's a slight shape component because in women's physique, you're going to see more hourglass figure-like physiques because just less muscularity allows for that. And, when you get into the women's bodybuilding, you're going to see slightly wider waists. You're going to see just some very, very extreme things that just kind of make the physique a little more blocky, because now at this point there is so much musculature. The thighs are rubbing together when they walk because they're so big, and you probably aren't going to see that as much in women's physique. So there is a little bit less of a shape component, just like going from classic physique to bodybuilding, a little less shape component. So, but the roundness of the muscles is very extreme because of the size in bodybuilding.
So women's physique has almost become kind of like the men's classic, where they just want a little bit more aesthetic, a little bit more shape, kind of the old school female bodybuilding versus what's possible today.
Absolutely. And one thing we always have to consider is it is the best of that day. Masters Nationals is a great show to kind of say you might not always see that criteria being met. And the judges have a very hard day that day because as women get older, the collagen levels drop, their skin's thinner, and a lot of those girls come in really conditioned. So, in the younger divisions, you sometimes don't see that striation and separation that you do with the older clients. And they've also been training longer too.
Yeah, all great points. Some things that we're going to be checking out here in the next 4 episodes in this series. So hope you guys stay tuned. We're going to keep tacking away at women's physique and bodybuilding for peak week norms. We'll see you next time.